Well, hello everybody on the internet. Welcome to another Monday Miniatures Ramble with me, Doc Ian. This Monday is Monday the 8th of June, 2020. And let's look at some character minis first. I've finally got around to finishing some more of those. Here, these two on the right are from Reaper. We have a Tiefling Sorceress. They don't call it Tiefling, I think they call them Hellborn. Where I tried to go with a more unusual skin color. And then we have a Dwarven Rogue. It turned out a bit dark because he's mostly leather gear, so it's brown. I could have painted some of it lighter brown, but you know, I thought he's a rogue, he wants to stay hidden, so he has dark outfits. He's got a bit of a bright color in his cap. Where I tried to go for something of a tartan pattern, I've not practiced that very much, and it's really hard to do on such a small surface. But so it's not true tartan, but it's more like trying to give the impression of it. And then I finally finished two of these Arcane Factories miniatures. I did the two heavily armored ones. What I've discovered is these are not very fun to paint. The thing is, when you look at pictures of them, and even when you just took them out of the packaging and started cleaning them up, it looked like there was a lot of detail sculpted onto them. And the reason I've done these two first is because they have all these spikes on their armor, and that is at least somewhat interesting. But if you look at like the faces, well, only one has a face, the other has a helmet, and the clothing, the problem is that in the casting, I'm not sure if it's actually where the problem is, if it's in the sculpting phase or the casting phase, but the detail is very, very shallow, which means it's hard to paint. It doesn't sort of catch the paint as easily as a good sculpt, where the details are, you know, separated from each other very cleanly, like on a Reaper miniature. And I think part of the problem is that these were CAD sculpted. And I think they were done by people who didn't actually have any experience in sculpting by hand before they started just playing around on a computer. And this led to a lot of their problems in production as well, I know, because that had to do with how they had to cut up the sculpts to make them possible to cast. So there's a lot of problems here. And I think what I'm gonna do is I'm not gonna worry so much about the detail on the remainder of these guys. I'll just try to get through them as quickly as possible and not try to do super nice paint jobs on them, but just, you know, get it done, get it finished, get it over with. But anyway, I did finish some more. I also painted a whole heap of Reaper bones, beginning with these two giant frogs or toads. They're actually painted different greens, a more muted military green and a brighter green here. Doesn't come across as much on camera, at least in the viewfinder, but in real life they look kind of different. And these two worms are also slightly different colors. One is more pink and one is more purple, just to differentiate them a little bit. They were just very quickly painted. And as for maximum speed painting, we have the shadows, which are hardly painted at all. They're given a series of washes to make the details pop a little bit, because they're translucent plastic to begin with, and if you just leave it as is, then light coming through it will just wash all the detail out, and it'll just look like a blob. So I try to put some darker pigments down in the recesses and just paint the bases, and Bob's your uncle. So, getting back into the swing of things, a little bit cheating with these 6 shadows because they're so exceedingly simple. But, 14 minis finished this week. That's better than the few I did last week. I still have a lot to do, so let's go over to the painting table. And here's all the unfinished stuff from last week. Mostly those Arcane Factories minis. A couple of the Roof Bones monsters. Haven't quite decided on the color schemes for them yet. These are just preliminary. Slapping on some paint that was left over from my palette just to see if it works. This one, purple and green. Could go for that. A red fish. Maybe, something like that. It needs cleaning up. Anyway, as I mentioned about these, I'm not really that impressed by them, and I'm gonna try to just finish them up quickly with speed painting techniques. All these humans. One thing I will say for the sculpts is that they're almost all ladies, and they're generally fully dressed. The exception being the Countess, but she's a vampire lady. It's right there in the name, vamp. And this is some sort of monster spirit creature, I don't know what. And this monk is the only dude in the group. But yeah, I'll just try to marshal some enthusiasm and finish these up. So the amount of newly prepped stuff that isn't already finished is kind of limited. The ones that are ready to go are these pieces of scenery. We have the gallows, which made me realize I want to get more execution style stuff. I gotta see if there's a guillotine miniature somewhere. Anyway, then we have the Tree of Despair, which is just primed, and it's primed the same color all over because it's sort of a... None of this is going to be red. The tree isn't going to be red, and the victim isn't going to be red. But red-brown is a good base for both the wood and the skin color, I think. Less so for the vultures, but oh well, you got to sacrifice something. The most interesting, thing about this miniature is that the roots don't actually always sit flush to the base all the way around, and now that I look at it from this angle, there's still a slight gap there. I've done a lot of gap filling, but if you look at it from this angle, you can still see a little gap there. And there. But I don't care. From above, it looks okay now. Nobody's going to lift it up and look like this. It's going to sit on a table and be seen from something like this angle. So I think this will be okay. The final bit of preparation I've done is not fully prepared, but we have all these Midland Miniatures bandits, female bandits, cleaned up, based, and the basing isn't fully done. This mud here, this is Vallejo Diorama Effects thick mud. I want this to dry, and then I'm going to sprinkle some other kind of grit over it to make it, to add some different textures to it. Not sure if I'm going to use Vallejo's texture there or just some basing grit maybe in the old style to mix and match. I'm not in a hurry. I've got lots of stuff to work on, so I don't need to hurry in the prep of these. It can take a little while. And you can look at some of them here. This one is for some reason much smaller than the others. Maybe she's not an adult. She's not quite a child, maybe a teenager.
who's been seduced into the criminal lifestyle and joined a gang. Oh, how sad. Anyway, you'll see more of these next week. They will be, by next week they will certainly be primed and maybe have a little bit of paint on them. Oh, and as an addendum, this Archway, which I thought I was going to do a mini diorama with, adding some other stuff to it. That's not going to happen, because what I didn't realize from the pictures is that there's no backside to it. This is not a freestanding kit. This is something that you're supposed to sort of like add on to an existing building. I guess my bad for not doing my research. Kind of unclear from the product page, if I'm going to be honest, but oh well. So I'm not going to be using this for anything right now. It's going to go in my bits box. And I will, last week when this arrived, I counted it as a miniature purchase. I've removed it from that. I've subtracted 1 from my purchase total. Because this is not a real miniature, it's just part of scenery, so I'm not counting it for that. In case you were keeping close tabs on my numbers.
So what am I going to do for new projects? Well, nothing new in the mail, and there's a lot of stuff in the pipe already, so I'm going to be pretty conservative and add just 1 model. But it's a big one. This is the Rock, R-O-C, that is, from Bones 4. The whole kit is called We Will Rock You. Again, rock spelled without a K. And it comes with this huge bird. It has a supplied base, integral base. It's a bunch of pieces. And big model. I don't think it's that complex. It'll take a time to paint simply because there's so much area to cover. And I want to be careful with it because, again, this is a model that is intended for a contest. I painted 1 model for the Reaper Facebook contest that is at the end of this month. I forget the exact dates. I've almost finished the model. Probably by next week. And you know, it's the gnome riding the beetle. He's going to be sent off to Reaper and as my entry soon. But anyway, they have a special contest this summer, apart from the quarterly, regularly scheduled ones. And I'm not sure why the special contest is, but it's for this model. You have to paint this exact figure. And it's the judging for that is in the middle of July. So I thought I'd better get started on it now. And what this means is I might show it to you assembled and primed next week, but then it's going to be super secret for a while until the contest is over. So might look like I'm not doing much, but rest assured I am working on stuff behind the scenes. Anyway, that was a jam-packed episode. Getting back on track. Feels good. And I hope you enjoyed it too. Click like if you did, subscribe, share it, comment, the usual. But above all, be back here in a week. Same day of the week, same channel, same me. But for now, Dakiyan is signing off.